Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very special horoscope about the upcoming total lunar eclipse in the sign of Taurus on the 8th of November 2022. As I said, this is a total lunar eclipse, which, from an astrological perspective, means that the moon and the node, respectively, at this eclipse, the north node, are conjunct and they're very close to each other. We had the partial solar eclipse in Scorpio on the 25th of October. That was where the conjunction of the sun and moon, the new moon, wasn't very close to the south node. So that eclipse, of course, from that perspective, was with, let's say, a mild intensity. Scorpio is not very mild in itself, so it still felt very heavy, but just the eclipse phenomenon was rather mild. Now, this Taurus lunar eclipse, this is not mild. Not just because it's that close to the node, but also because it is to the degree conjunct here with Uranus. And Uranus is not mild. Uranus doesn't like to play soft, it doesn't take compromises, it is basically the cold, hard truth, it is what it is. And when it acts as an element of chaos, as an element of surprise, an awakening, um, revelatory energy, it also acts pretty, let's say, mercilessly, because in a moment, in a millisecond, everything changes with awareness. Now, one can depict this, for example, as an accident. Now, an accident might be an unfortunate, unfavorable alignment of circumstances, for example, which can have a very strong astrological support as well. An eclipse, as such, can represent somewhere at some part of the world in someone's life, in one area of life, perhaps an accident. Let's even say physical accident because Taurus, earth energy. But this is, let's say, a north node eclipse, so with Uranus, what does that mean? Well, the accident was actually not really an unfortunate alignment, but alignment of truth. When certain elements meet, accident, careless person plus health and safety rules broken 10 million times, bad work ethic, these are already elements, and boom, something happens. But that which happens once was boiling for, let's say, months, because that is how the bad elements came together. Bad habits, ignorance, not a very friendly work environment, also, why not? Bad feelings at work, negative energy. But these are just let's say, physically, health and safety rules not respected continuously. There will come a moment when the truth is revealed that this combination, this cocktail of circumstances, energies, whatever, cannot coexist with one another without an accident happening. So, to us, it seems like tragedy. Someone breaks an arm, some physical harm happens, or someone is scared, whatever. And that's not so very good, but an eclipse, it breaks the cycle, it breaks the pattern, it breaks Taurus, the bad habit. So ultimately, something positive to the future North Node, which is made permanent, is born out of this. For example, an inspector hired to watch if everyone respects health and safety rules, watching cameras, training, investment into this, it fixes the problem for the long-term future because the accident is going to be remembered. Now, take this very likely uh, astrological expression example and adapt it to your, of course, your area of life. It can be emotional. The truth is there. You feel it and you cannot unfeel it. You cannot talk yourself out of it. Nothing helps. It is what it is in feeling. So you accept it and you move on. But with ease this time. It is painful when you realize that this is what I'm feeling and I cannot guilt myself for what I'm feeling. And you move on. That it's an eclipse, so it terminates, it resets something. And it's a shock. Inner shock, Uranus retrograde. External shock for someone else. In love, in relationship, in contract, in something that is permanent in your life, something that perhaps is rooted, something that is value, good or bad. Bad habit, for example. Do you know the difference between good and bad when it comes to a pleasurable habit, for example? So whatever this, and Uranus is the awareness telling you it is what it is. You look at what this energy brings in your life individually, and you can clearly, let's say, make up your mind, or the universe, karma, circumstances made the mind up for you. And this is very, very probable because all of this to me says, almost like it's written on it, time is up for waiting, for indecision, for this and that, and time is now and right now for whatever needs to be born out of this or propulse you to the future with this. Because, if it's like a termination, okay. But if that termination in circumstantial Uranus forces you to already live the new beginning comes simultaneously, and the cocktail of these two energies can speak of that new moon, South Node new moon. That almost speaks to me as the past, even if it's negative, excess, excrement, energetically or whatever, feeds something new, and this Taurus eclipse will live this new. So this can be quite positive, even if it might feel as a shock, as a surprise, as a crisis. Maybe a very short-term crisis, but it's here, it hits. And it is what it is. But how it motivates you by force, by need, by whatever, and where it gets you, well, actually that's a good place because you can process it there and you're already living the new, so you're okay actually in this sense. So whatever area of life this falls into your chart, and as I said, a T square to Saturn, time's up. It changes our lives, it changes our future plans. We might have anticipated, sensed, or got signals, let's say, of this great change that is upcoming all throughout the year because Saturn was in Aquarius. So, you know, that Saturn held a lot of reality check aspects this year. The square that it held with Uranus, which is also naturally part of the eclipse and the astrological cocktail of this energy. That square is a big real out with the old, how it always used to be, in with the new. Or if there's nothing to come in, nothing new to come in, sorry, you have to birth it. There is no other choice. Either something comes in, but of course, Uranus is on authenticity, total authenticity. There can be situations and people, and it so happens to exist that nothing is truly matching, resonant of you in any area of, in anything, any theme. Nothing new can come in. Okay, this exists. It's rare, but look, it's here. But no problem. Uranus retrograde internally, Taurus, fertility. And there is a lot of intellect here. Uranus opposing his lower octave Mercury. Everything about the mind and mindset. The mind is not excused right now. The mind is full part of this great transformation and change crisis which gets somewhere, or the structures of our life in a moment collapsing, but in a positive way. Because why? Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius. There is no way Saturn, his own unique way, did not foretell us in Aquarius, the sign of foretelling, the sign of astrologers, Uranus. It did tell Saturn its own way that, look, Saturn, prepare yourself because it will change, readapt. And that Saturn, not so long ago, few weeks ago, was us, retrograde, the structure and the steering wheel, kind of judgmentally, decision wise, was in our hands. And when we did not know the answer to certain questions, or we could not judge, and when I say judge, not judging people, judging a situation clear, weighing Libra stuff, kind of, in that sense. So then we had to find our answers, and we got help karmically to find our answers. So right now we have to be prepared. By attitude, this is where we had to find our faith. Jupiter by now exited from Aries, Aries into back into Pisces. Pisces is the house of finalities, the sign of finalities, the sign where it's the last minute, the last finishing touch. Jupiter won't be back here in the next 12 years, but this transit that Jupiter had in Pisces is was and is extra special. So this is big. This is final moments. And this will reflect also in the eclipse and with this Saturn, the breaking of Saturn, basically. How prepared are we? Because, ready or not, transformation and changes are definitely knocking at the door. The mind is present, the integrity of even the ego is present. The sun in Scorpio, of course. Venus, the heart value system, our wants, the passive element, everything that we want to attract in our lives, everything that basically makes us happy. Taurus and Scorpio axis. That kind of is, at the end of the day, what kind of makes us happy. What fills our, cup, really. What appeals to us. Psychologically, instinctually, our five senses, our greater values, everything is packed into this axis, so it kind of, it touches a chord. So the sun and Mercury being conjunct here with the south node, also with Venus, but Venus is much further, so I'm not going to include her right now. This conjunction opposing the moon, the opposition of sun and moon, of course, the full moon phenomenon, the eclipse, lunar eclipse. The sun conjunct Mercury eclipses the moon, the mind. And the sun conjunct Mercury is also very important because lucid, conscious mind. The Sabian symbols of these planets at Scorpio, I'm not going to mention them right now because you can just look them up. Sabian symbol of 14 degrees of Scorpio. This is where they all speak about something that was either unconscious or at the borderline of conscious unconscious, now truly gets into the sphere of understanding, of processing. An aspect like this, just Mercury conjunct the sun in the sign of Scorpio, and with the south node, a secret is revealed. A detective solves the case, not yet, but it makes sense here, it's gonna be solved, because He found what he needed. The scientist discovers the formula. The archaeologist finally starts seeing the bigger picture. The paleontologist finds the joint, bone, whatever he needed. So this is when we get what we want, our passions, our ambitions, everything that we've done and fueled into this, including psychologically and why not spiritually. It gets something, a completion, a termination. But a termination is when something matures and is completed. It's born. It's there. And as I said, with this nodal activity, this can also represent simultaneously something is eliminated, which allows something new to be born. It, of course, it is very tied, alchemically speaking, to the Scorpio eclipse. Of course, this past 25 October Scorpio eclipse, that was the promoter. So yes, something manifests, something is being born, something rocks our world, something changes our value system, and it awakens us deeply, deeply. The Sabian symbol of, okay, I think I forgot already, of this 16 degrees of Taurus, and I'm really struggling right now to remember. If I'm not I'm gonna check. I'm so sorry for this, but better than to be unsure. So yeah, let's check because I'm so sorry I forgot. So a battle between the swords and torches. Yeah. So this is the Sabian symbol of this degree, the battle between wands and torches. And if we're here, let's look at the woman holding a bag out the window. Yeah, that's where Uranus is. This is so suggestive. Wands and torches. The torch is what we need to accomplish. Our needs and the will to do it. The willingness to do it. In Taurus, this is Taurus energy. So we're actually doing it, even physically. Whatever it takes, we're doing it. The sword is the strategy, how, the methodology, the mind. The two sometimes have to battle with one another to reach a consensual attitude, to alchemize a way forward. Sometimes battles between inner fire, inner air, torch and the wand and sword is inevitable, but it's okay. Because Uranus, the symbol of the woman airing the bag out the window, we need to air all of our misaligned beliefs, misaligned values, vanity, greed, especially because the sword is cutting the vanity and greed out of, and just one Sabian symbol up, the Uranus one, we understand why. Because everything that is truly outdated within our minds, within our being, why minds? Mercury, Uranus, higher mind, lower mind. And speaking about Mercury, Mars retrograde in the sign of Gemini, squaring Neptune. Exactly. Make up the mind, the decision. And the wands and the sword, decision time. Again, decision time, because when the clash between the fire and the air results in some, the boom happens, then a direction is born, and then we can choose, then we know, then the feeling is there as well, Venus. The value is there as well, Venus. The ambition, everything is there. But it might not be painless. It might not be painless, and it still is very, very important for our future. Very, 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 very important. Extremely important. So this eclipse will shock us, will shake us up, will surprise us, or will bring events our way which will seem a bit too much chaos, pure chaos. Is it in your 12th house? Because then people, then feelings, then a state of confusion, yet still not truly confused. That is a chapter out of the Twilight Zone, one way or another. And karmic stuff, usually family stuff, 12th house is very, very complicated and complex, and the unconscious can come to the surface, erupt as well. But is it in your 11th house? What is it about your future hopes and dreams that transforms, changes with this? What do you give up and what else takes its place? Friends, how does the landscape of your friends change and shift by necessity? 10th house, your soul is calling you some life path. You must do what you need to do for your life path. And that means 4th house, what you do with family, your roots, relocation, etc. 9th house, do you give up on something that always made you feel comfortable as a professional? A niche, for example, or something that, a knowledge, a degree, a diploma, a recognition, praise. Are you willing to lessen your how should I say this? Your appreciation, your admiration of that, and allow greater knowledge to take its place. So maybe this can be a massive decision to respecialize for some people, or take their knowledge, their learning, their life philosophies, their worldview to a different place, let's say. 8th house. Well, either money, big money, either you need to eliminate a debt or an inheritance, but it can also be a massive psychological purge, a secret coming out, maybe a healing, but with a surgery, for example. But these are just examples, not that if it's in your 8th house, it's gonna be your case. You know what is happening in your life. This is already prepared. 7th house. Either as a couple you begin a new life, new chapter, or maybe an infidelity changes the landscape, or maybe feelings are not the same as they used to be. 6th house. Physical body. What routines permanently change? Or how do you regenerate yourself for the long term? A new and healthy routine, for example. Service, your work, managing time. 5th house, a heartbreak healing, or a heartbreak that sets you free actually. Or a new hobby, a new passion. Being born out of the rubbles, the debris of an old one. A child leaving you because they have to start their life. But your fear of loneliness actually gets you to a new hobby, new purposes, ideals. So, something that should be a bit hard actually has something new to offer. 4th house, your roots. Who have we lost recently? A family member, relatives. How did that change the very foundation of our lives? Or how will your family landscape, your country, where you live, where you want to belong, how will that change? And 3rd house, mindset, modus operandi, your everyday thoughts, and what actually animates, what ideal, what purpose, what worldview animates your thoughts. How does that, something bad, something self-defeating is eliminated, and something really more optimistic and playful takes its place. Second house, an investment finally, unexpectedly, it's here. It almost comes on a silver tray for you to just give your resources and take it. Or you are called to sacrifice something, but the good that it does, it is more than worth it. Or maybe this is where your low self-esteem, which always blocked your financial life, is gone. Uranus can be very surprising and can take the shape and form of a person. And first house, of course, what does change about your identity? Who you think you are, who you want to become. Take control of many things in your life. That which is not under your control, well, something happens there at this eclipse. Collectively speaking, well, needless to say, it's on the financial axis. So it's very obvious that it will shake up the world financially. How? We might not really know and not even able to anticipate because of Uranus. By degree conjunction with Uranus, it's almost laughable to try and guess it because it's not gonna be what we think it is. It's a surprise. But at the end of the day, it can also be a surprising revelation, a truth coming out. Or maybe that is simultaneous, a political Scorpio earthquake. The results of investigations come out. Something takes place, Uranus opposing the Sun ultimately. Something takes place that shows a different kind of truth. On all of a sudden, it changes everything. We become aware that reality is not going to be the same after that moment of awareness, collectively speaking. So what is targeted here? World Bank, the global economy, Saturn. What kind of structures will collapse here? Or how will they readapt? Because as I said, something new is birthing at the same time. There is no pause or break between death and rebirth, basically. It is Aquarius, simultaneous. So there is, of course, the fear, the moon and Taurus, the surprise, the emotional shock of whatever it is collapsing. On the other hand, the two waves, there is the joy, the welcoming of the new, and the hopes for the future and the good humor that it brings. So this will be rather interesting. Um, Again, Jupiter going back into the sign of Pisces, that reactivates justice within the medical world. It also might, Jupiter expands something about the medical situation, maybe COVID, maybe other medical issues are going to be triggered, magnified, amplified. But at the same time, Mars squares Neptune in Mars in Gemini. So any news can really not be trusted. Everything is really deceptive, let's say, not deceitful, deceptive out there. And but I think in a sense it's okay because we kind of know we can rely on it really all that much. So it's, I do want to believe it's not that big deal, but this adds to it, of course, the confusion because it happens, something happens, but in which way or how, or from which points of view are we gonna know about it? How are we gonna know? So this is also, and the feelings of people are really, really, as I said, awakening. What does the awakening represent? In that sense, and Speaking about the moon and Taurus behavioral patterns within values, what it is that we value collectively, that changes a lot. A change that cannot be undone. Our behavior collectively as even consumers, as merchants, as everything Taurian, how we put and emphasize value in what that changes within us collectively at the same time, and that will change, of course, the world of economy very, very soon. Immediately, if not, give it a month or two. But ultimately, Taurus, it returns us to the core truth of simplicity. We need that so very much in our lives. Because if we truly value the simple, basic core that cannot go wrong, values whatever it is, in matter, in any preference, in moral, in matters of love, in matters of whatever, we cannot, as I said, we cannot go wrong. We basically return to innocence, even in the eyes of the divine, in mass, just by finally allowing our hearts to choose freely. Mars is retrograde in Gemini. When we don't really care about what's the norm, and then we choose freely. And that is the good that it will do. Our values will surprise us. We will find that, in our hearts of hearts, as vain, as greedy, as ignorant, as so much bad, I can say, that all of us were, we had a lot of good as well. In our hearts of hearts, we do truly value that which is honest, that which is good, that which is beneficial for everyone. In our hearts of hearts, we do want to share everything with everyone, and we do aspire for peace. Actually, we kind of discover collectively that we can cooperate. It's not so hard, it's not a false ideal, and that changes the world instantly. And from a psychological perspective, well, that's gonna what's happened called mood wise, feeling wise, the temperament, the humor wise, that is what we're gonna be feeling collectively. And because it's Taurus, look at the animal world, birds, plants, whatever, their behavior will reflect this, that they prefer that which is certain, that which is, as in animals around, that they will not take risky action. They will be that much more intuitive, instinctual, wiser, and perhaps withdrawn, if that may even make sense. Because, the animals will very, very, very strongly sense this eclipse. It might frighten them, but it might also trigger a certain collective conservative instinct, as in, you'll see. But anyway, we're also part of nature's kingdom, so we are going to be feeling this as true values somehow being birthed within us. We will appreciate, just by sheer, gut, or how should I say this, that which is truly valuable in one another. Not necessarily by that much thought. Mercury and Scorpio, instinct. We just know. The mind trusts the gut. Given a bit of life experience, the mind does trust the gut. Mercury is always okay in Scorpio, according to my astrological, interpretation of these energies. Whenever Mercury is in Scorpio, things get done quickly. Even when usually there are a lot of blockages in communication and people don't want to cooperate, when Mercury is in Scorpio, it kind of gets things done quickly, and you find out what you need to. And because all of this is part of the eclipse, well, you can imagine that it's gonna be. And also there is a physical element to this as well, because on one hand, unusual weather phenomenon, the power of water, again, breaking of pipes, sewage, water ducts, everything that has to do with the conservation of water. We might see that playing out of surprise flash flood, or certain pollution somewhere, ecological disasters, or nature created ecological disasters. A lake turns toxic, sulfurous, or whatever. So we might end naturally seismic activity, because yeah, it's an eclipse. So it's everything's gonna shake. Let's hope that this doesn't have to be anything all that doomy and gloomy, of course. But it is a possibility, I cannot lie, that there might be some unusual weather event that can be quite destructive. And if you're into astrocartography, you can even anticipate, a little Uranus, just a tiny bit, where it might be affected more than other places. But yeah, I'm pretty certain we will see that also. But what is more important, the political one, economical one, value one. And as I said, this is not black and white. This is where there's a lot of complexity to it. Scorpio. But it is us to make it black and white. Because we need black and white now. Black, white, good, bad, good, evil, whatever. We need this to know at least which side of we're pendulating towards, in that sense. So this is the kind of energy that will give us the stark truth there and then. And as I said, the Saturn, things change after this eclipse. Our future hopes and plans, and what we think, how we envisage our futures, even close future, why not? That, without a shadow of doubt, changes. And I would also like to throw a look at the asteroids, because you see here Eris is squaring Pluto. And Eris is the sister of Mars, so she is an energy which represents rebellion, which represents total chaos. Her expression is a bit similar to Uranus. She acts in that manner, but she's not necessarily the cold heart aspect of truth. She is in, a more stark truth than that, which does have at least a divine imprint on it. And okay, this means she's gonna challenge Capricorn. Absolutely. So people will express their dissatisfaction with basically everything. But she also squares a meeting of, oh, sorry, no, sorry, a meeting of, yeah, Pallas Athena and Black Moon Lilith in the sign of Cancer. This is heavily toxic. This is very, very, very toxic energy emotionally. So expect toxic bombs. On the world stage, however, this is, I do believe, ethnicity and the old stuff in your culture, in your area, in your continent. You know what the old stuff is, which comes to the surface and is triggered with Pallas Athena. There might be a method in this madness, because Pallas Athena usually represents tacticality, where when tactics fail, she also uses force. So, symbolically, of course, if we see a friction between Eris and Pallas Athena, and Eris is in the sign of Aries, This is a very volatile energy. And, Aries, we might also see this on the world stage, to be honest with you. Because Aries does represent the cardinal energy when something is being born, like something is set into swing. Now, if that's a conflict, well, we find out. And, you know, how should I say? We kind of see where it will go immediately, but, it is what it is. So, something like that, where we see a conflict escalating, growing, where we kind of see where it will go, but we cannot do anything to prevent it. So, you know, I hope this is not gonna have any violent expressions. But on the other hand, you know, there is a trine between the moon conjunct Uranus and Orcus conjunct Ceres in the sign of Virgo. Now, Orcus is a very important planetoid here because this can mean ancestral regeneration. This can mean healing, powerful, powerful healing, because Orcus acts very similarly to Pluto, but it is in its expression more ancient and more primordial than Pluto. If Pluto is the representation of, the underworld, the change, death, transformation, the phoenix, well, then Orcus is that which devours everything. That where the transformation will not go in cycle anymore. So it is a gateway between the realm of the abyss and basically every other realm. Ceres in the sign of Virgo. Well, this is where nurture, nourishment. So for a lot of people, this is solving a big problem. Because trine, a disease, an illness, a problem, anything that was there for a very long time can have a solution. Something pays off. Something true, because this is what the trine means. And this Virgo energy is so good because the better qualities of Virgo are the purity, the determination to truly face it and do it, regardless of what that means. Virgo represents the path of the monk, where you can imagine the 4 years before one becomes a monk are of very hard labor up to the degree of cruelty. And one needs to do that to achieve the humbleness. And Orcus with Ceres, well, everything that you might have sacrificed, because ultimately that Ceres can now return to you as power, as a blessing, as an unexpected completion that can truly be a big ally in your life to do something positive with whatever this eclipse brings you. It can be a fantastic new beginning where the collapse of the old is even pleasurable. Another energy that I would like to look at, let me just find where it is. Yes, this Vesta in the sign of Aquarius. So all of us are going to be basically feeling that much more passionate, almost serendipitous for the future. So regardless of what is here, what pain this collapse of Saturn represents, there is still the light of hope, the flame of hope, the sacred flame that will never ever die out. As long as hope burns in the heart, it also exists in the mind. Because, the Aquarius and Leo axis, the heart and the mind. And this Vesta can represent the sacred flame of hope that just doesn't give up. And if that burns in the mind, it gets it gets a lot done. Sometimes that is actually the key of miracles. So yes, this eclipse is going to be quite shocking, quite intense, but it's gonna do a lot. It's gonna get a lot done. So thank you so much for listening. I do hope that this was helpful. Um, as a last word, all I want to say is that, you know, a moment of an eclipse is where we have to observe, when we have to deeply reflect at what the new light, the first new light, because an eclipse is a reset. That means that after the reset, the new comes in. What that new light reveals to us, we have to take it as such. This is where whatever is there, whatever is going to be reflected in our lives, as I said, we have to take it as such because that will be the very, very best attitude. So change our lives and allow this transformation to take place with acceptance and basically choosing the truth, even if illusion would be much more comfortable. So thank you again. Until next time. Bye for now.